Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Calaveras County for the 12th of September. Do we have enough seats here? Before we get started, are we out in the lobby? Okay, great. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Give a couple of moments to let everybody get seated. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get going, I want to remind everybody that we kind of like to have our last two rows on each side, or last row, reserved for staff. They'll be coming in and out during the day making presentations, if you will. We have an area over here for our press. That's where if you're a member of the press, you can be seated over there. Having said that, is there any announcements from the board or staff?
Do you want me to read it? So, announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public. So just so you know, for those of you who may be waiting, if it's for public comment, that's going to be in a little while.
Okay. Any announcements by board members? Any announcements by staff? Good morning, District Attorney.
Good morning, Barbara Uke, District Attorney. I'm here on behalf of my office, the County Office of Education. Scott Nannett couldn't be present today, and our entire SARB board. It's a 14-member statutory board. It's a lot of people. I'm here on behalf of all those groups to announce that September is Student Attendance Awareness Month. This is about kids going to school, staying in school, getting a good education, coming out good citizens, which of course my interest is in having the good citizens who will help us keep the crime rates down. So truancy and school attendance is very important to me, not only as a working mom of a school-aged child, but as district attorney. As part of Attendance Awareness Month, we are having a poster contest. This is open to students in grades 1 through 8. There are 2 categories, a couple opportunities to win there. Grades 1 through 5 will be judged together, and grades 6 through 8 will be judged together. The grand prize is being sheriff for the day, so that's another reason I wanted to come here and let everybody know, especially all of you, that it is only open if you are up to grade 8. You can't participate. We don't have an honorable mention. We can discuss that, but you will not be able to be sheriff for a day. So the other prizes include cash prizes. I believe there's a $100 cash prize, so it's going to be a really fun contest. The posters are due September 29th. They must be original work. For more information, you can contact Renee Malamed at CUSD. It's rmalamed at calaveras.k12.ca.us. The winners will be picked and announced in October, and I'm hoping to come back and present the winners to you, and maybe we can convince someone to hang up the posters in the boardroom. I think that would be really neat to show the students' work and the students' appreciation for attendance in schools. And if anybody has any other questions, they can also stop by my office. If you can find it, we are not in this building. We are not in the courts, as some people might think. We are not in the sheriff's office. We are in the set of trailers that have to be periodically jacked up across from the senior center. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. I just want to reiterate what Barbara Uke said and make sure that you all understand that you will not be allowed to be sheriff for the day. And I'm hoping that we can do this at a time like Ms. Uke said, to have the kids come here so that they can be the sheriff of the day on the day that they come here to announce that to everybody. And I'll have a little itinerary of what they're going to do. And be aware that if they make some major changes, it's not me, it'll be them. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff.
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. Just to announce that we had a hazardous household collection waste event at the Arnold and West Point transfer stations and here at Government Center on Saturday. During the 4-hour tire amnesty event, we filled a 40-yard trailer to overflowing with additional tires, so that was good. The Greater Valley Conservation Corps donated time and education to these events, and we increased the turnout in terms of the number of citizens served by over 100 over the 2016 event. So it was successful, and I wanted to thank our partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Groves.
Nancy Giddens, County Librarian. I wanted to bring you some very good news this morning. I applied for a grant to receive for free 2 3D printers for our Calaveras County Library System. And yesterday I got word that we were awarded that. So we will have 2 3D printers. Now, they're not huge. We can't make prosthetics or anything like that. But we can at least show our kids and our young people and our adults how this wonderful new technology works. My plan is to keep one in San Andreas, of course, the largest library that we have, and then put the other in the Angels Camp branch if we get to expand that space there, because we'll have designated young adult and children's areas in both of those libraries. Second thing I want to tell you about is my wonderful Link Plus story. You know, we now have in Calaveras County free interlibrary loan. We are linked with about almost 70 library systems in this state, and actually the University of Las Vegas as well. Sac City, San Francisco, Contra Costa, San Diego, all of these big city library systems, as well as universities. UOP went live last week. So we have access to their entire library for free. The way to do this is really easy. Just go on our webpage, push the Link Plus thing. The instructions are so simple. Everyone who's participated said, this is so easy. But I have to tell you my great story. A couple Saturdays ago, I was working in San Andreas. A patron came in and said, I am going to take a test to be a phlebotomist. Do you have a study book for that? And I said, no, I don't think we do, but let's look on Link Plus. We found one in Sacramento, 2016 publication date. We ordered it for her. She got it. She ran from the library, jumping and screaming, yay, yay, now I can prepare. I haven't seen her since, so I don't know if she passed, but we helped her at least to prepare for that test. So Link Plus is fabulous. All of you, if you haven't used it, 9 million items we have. That includes DVDs, audiobooks, as well as print books, and it's free. Third thing, I wanted to give you a brief update on Scenic, the broadband project that we have. I've bug them every week. I got in my email, just a gentle reminder, this project goes until such and such a date. But I'm really anxious to get this into our main library and 4 branches, because it's going to allow us to put on the desktop many, many links that will help our county. I have to the side of my desk, ready to go, a link to Social Security forms, veteran services, medical information, and that includes the pharmaceutical side of that, and as well as financial management and how to recover from an identity theft. All of that is ready to go, but we can't put it on the desktops yet because our speed is too slow. So the Scenic project is, I'm bugging them. We're going to get those circuits done. The Scenic is working with AT&T to get the basic circuits installed in the places that we need them, and then IT is ready to do the purchasing. The money is in place, we're ready to go, but I don't have go live dates yet. Sorry about that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Great. Any other staff or CAO Lutz, how are you? Good morning.
Good. I had 2 announcements. I think one might be resolved now. We were having some audio issues from our streaming, so not that anyone in here would know this necessarily, but we haven't been broadcasting audio on the stream, but we are working on it right now in the midst of the meeting. Secondly, I asked Patrick Martin, who's sitting out in the audience, to take time out of his busy schedule this morning. First of all, to note, those of you in the public that frequently come to this campus have probably saw disruptions in areas blocked off while there's been painting, while there's been landscaping and other construction projects. One, just wanted to reiterate, pardon our mess, but we are working to really clean up the campus. And with that, I also wanted to acknowledge Patrick, if you wouldn't mind standing, and his hard work on really getting his crews focused on those essential areas of making this campus something that we can be proud of and well-maintained. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for the acknowledgement. My staff has worked real hard. We're a very new staff. Myself, I've only been here 3 months, but we're taking great pride in bringing this campus back to its glory days. So it's going to take a little time. It took time to get to this condition, but we're going to work hard to bring it back to something we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Patrick, don't walk away. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the distinct honor yesterday to attend one of the first services for our 9/11 remembrance, and it was the retiring of our flag here, and that program was done under the direction by Patrick and his crew, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. All right.
Any further staff or board report? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Item 1 is from the Board of Supervisors to adopt a proclamation recognizing the continued efforts of Calaveras Recovers.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think 9/11 is not a holiday, but a day of remembrance for many people across this country. But it also is a day that marks when the Butte Fire reached areas like Mound Ranch on September 9th, 2015. The Butte Fire broke out in Amador County, and today's proclamation is recognizing one of our community groups that has been an anchor in the recovery. As many of us know, certainly in District 2, the fire was 2 years ago, but we live with it every single day, and many people are still recovering from that fire in 100 different ways. And I encourage this county to always remember, if you don't make it up the hill from Highway 49, it may seem a long time ago, but in many of our residents' minds, it is very much a part of their daily existence. So I encourage our county to continue to support these people as they recover, and I get the privilege of reading a proclamation recognizing Calaveras Recovers. This is a proclamation recognizing Calaveras Recovers for their determination, dedication, and hard work, helping the survivors of the Butte Fire return to the new normal of Calaveras County. Whereas on September 9th, 2015, the Butte Fire erupted in Amador County, crossing the McCallamy River into Calaveras County at approximately 7 p.m. On the same day, and whereas upon containment on October 1st, 2015, the Butte Fire had consumed 70,868 acres, destroying or damaging over 900 structures, leaving numerous people and families without homes. And whereas the citizens and the county had never experienced such a catastrophic and traumatic event in recent memory, and whereas on October 18th, 2015, Calaveras Recovers was organized under the direction of FEMA, utilizing only citizen volunteers to help Butte Fire survivors. And whereas Calaveras Recovers worked tirelessly to reach out to 1,006 households affected by the Butte Fire, providing financial, spiritual, and emotional care. And whereas to date, 220 survivors have walked through the doors of Calaveras Recovers, resulting in both immediate and long-term needs being met. And whereas Calaveras Recovers, with the help of the team of volunteers from faith-based groups from all over the United States, have built 7 homes, with an additional 3 homes being constructed and nearing completion. And whereas Calaveras Recovers also provided complete household contents for 26 households under the House in a Box program. And whereas Calaveras Recovers efforts continue both at the community and county level 2 years after the incident, and have committed to stay intact so that the structure of the group is in place if called upon by the community. And whereas without the assistance of Calaveras Recovers and the many volunteer organizations working with them, recovery from the Butte fire incident would not have been achievable. Mr.
Thank
Chair?
you. I entertain a motion for the resolution.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli. Second. Second by Supervisor Mills. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 5-0 unanimous.
Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Calaveras Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes Calaveras Recovers and their immense effort to assist citizens after the worst catastrophic and traumatic event in recent memory of Calaveras County. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County, State of California, this 12th day of September, 2017. Thank you very, very much. And
Are
if
there
I-
any representative from Calaveras Recovers? We can have you come forward, please. You know, all women. Surrounded by women. Thank you very much. Kid. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Item 2 is from the Board of Supervisors to proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2017 as Constitution Week in Calaveras County.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have the distinct honor of making this presentation, the proclamation. It's a proclamation recognizing September 17th through the 23rd, 2017 as Constitution Week in Calaveras County. Whereas it is the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 230th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Therefore, I would entertain a motion for the proclamation.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Therefore, let it be proclaimed that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors proclaims September 17th through the 23rd, 2017 as Constitution Week in Calaveras County. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras, State of California, this 12th day of September 2017. Are there any representatives here that would like to accept this proclamation? I'm gonna request that Mr. Segala come forward. You can come up here, Al.
I'll get in trouble.
Al, only deserving. There you go, young man. Thank you for all the work you do and what you do about this country.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
There you go, Al.
Do you allow public comment?
Sure. You got 2 minutes.
Well, as everybody knows now, that September 17th marks the 230th anniversary of the signing of the American Constitution. Compared to other nations, the United States is young, but at 230 years, our Constitution is by far the longest lasting Constitution in human history. That's incredible. More importantly, it is responsible for our nation becoming the freest and most prosperous nation in human history. It means that freedom begets prosperity. What a concept. Today, the future of both freedom and prosperity are in question in our county, largely because we have been failing to teach our young people the fundamentals of American civics that are essential to preserve free government. At this meeting today, the Board of Supervisors is recognizing the Constitution Week. I want to co-sponsor this and urge everybody to do the same. That means Eagle Scouts, veterans, everybody that cares about the Constitution would even take the time to read it. Business and our economy prospers when our rights to life, liberty, and property are protected. This is what the Constitution does. As we approach Constitution Day, the 17th, Hillsdale College has set a goal to raise $300,000 in order to launch an ambitious new initiative to expand our educational outreach to young people in the area of American civics. Over 1 million people, including me, have taken their free Constitution 101 course. I recommend every public official take that. And everybody that cares about our country should take it. Will you partner with them with this work to advance the understanding of American civics nationwide, especially among young people, about the importance of limited government and the Constitution to liberty? Please consider a gift to help launch this vital initiative. To access where to go, just Google Hillsdale College Constitution, and it'll be right there for you. In addition, the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association is offering to provide free copy of our founding documents to students and others interested. Of course, we've been giving these to the Board of Supervisors for 8 years now, and I'm always told they already had one. Have a great day, and thank you.
Thank you, Al. Is there any other public comment on this particular item? Okay. Madam Clerk?
So, Chair, if I could just back up for 1 second to announcements. I was busy typing and I forgot to make the announcement I needed to make.
We'll forgive you.
Thank you. So I'd like to announce that the 2017 Calaveras County Senior Volunteer of the Year Award Luncheon, which is put on by the Calaveras County Commission on Aging, is going to be held on October 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a $10 payable at the door lunch and it's at Dodassa Ranch in Burson. You have to RSVP by October 4th. If you have any information regarding someone that you would like to nominate as a Senior Volunteer of the Year, you can send that information to me and I'll be happy to forward it on to the Commission on Aging. The deadline for that is September 26th. So again, the deadline for submitting volunteer nominations is September 26th, and the deadline to RSVP for the luncheon is October 4th. So if you have any questions, you can contact the clerk's office. Okay, public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. Please keep in mind that only 5 people are allowed in the aisle, so you'll have to step outside and wait, or you'll have to go back to your seats.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're going to have a number of speakers. Once again, heed the admonition of our board clerk. We'll go for 30 minutes, and then we'll continue public speaking at the end of our regular agenda. And looking to our subjects, that could be a while. So I will request your cooperation, understanding, and I want to make sure that we're all recognizing the respect of the speakers, of the chamber, of the board. Thank you.
Good evening, good morning, Board. Prapana Randall Smith, District 3 voter. I am here today to announce the formation of a new stakeholders group here in Calaveras County. Stakeholders are, by definition, those with an interest or concern on a given topic. The purpose of the Calco Cannabis Stakeholders Group is to promote cooperation between the cannabis industry and Calaveras government. It is comprised of concerned citizens, parents, and local community leaders who are not growers or people who are in the industry, as well as cannabis industry business leaders. To this end, the stakeholders group aim is to bring all involved parties to the table to promote workable regulations and compromise between moderate groups on both sides of the cannabis issue, and to provide aid to the county elected officials and staff with our collective subject matter expertise. We do this as a service on behalf of all concerned Calaveras County citizens, and we do it without fees or asking for fees. Now, we do have one request, and that is that while we understand that the current direction to County Council is to draft a ban ordinance and take it to the Planning Commission, we feel that the fair thing to do would be to add some form of the draft regulation ordinance and have that presented to the Planning Commission for consideration, so for consideration on the 28th and 29th of this month. We feel that's very important. The Planning Commission should have an opportunity to look at a draft ordinance, and at the last meeting, we heard that that wasn't the intent. The intent was to bring only a ban to the Planning Commission. We feel that it'd be fair for them to look at the regulation ordinance that the EIR was based upon or analyzing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make one quick announcement. You can speak on items not on the agenda, and I know we have some representative and folks here regarding our Visitors Bureau issues. That's going to be heard under the agenda regular item under the budget. So if you're in line to speak on that now, we're not going to be able to listen until that item comes up. All right? Thank you.
Good morning, Alice Montgomery, District 3. Good morning, Chair Oliveira,
Morning,
Tofinelli, Garamendi, Mills, and Clapp. I'm here today to talk with you about commercial cultivation and about what I imagine to be the 2 main concerns of the board, and that would be the health and safety of our citizens and our environment and our finances. I'm also very concerned about the health and safety of our citizens, our environment, and our finances. Under citizens, I think right now, after doing a good bit of research, it seems that regulation has been untenable. An example has been what we've had happen in our residential areas and the responses that people who have issues with it have received. If they don't like the smell and it affects them, they've been told, literally, go inside, shut your windows, and turn the air conditioning on. I don't think that's helpful. The other thing about our animals, our groundwater, all those things are unsafe. It's not healthy, it's not safe for our citizens, which moves me, and the other thing I want to talk to you about health and safety with the citizens, which bleeds over into environment, is I've been told 3 times in the last month by Alliance growers, hey, we're going to use water for manufacturing. We really want to push this manufacturing thing. And you know what? You can't use butane. It's against the law. There is a loophole in Prop 64. I will tell you right now, you may use butane to manufacture. In certain circumstances, you can use butane. So if anybody tells you that, it's incorrect. If you have been within a butane hash oil facility and you've been within a meth facility, you will know that a butane facility is way, way more dangerous. It has no place, and I stand with Sheriff DeBasilio, it has no place in our county. The second thing, on to the environment. Did we know? Should we have known? That's the only burden of proof, and it's been held up in court. It's not innocent until proven guilty. Did Calaveras County know? Second thing, what are we sending downstream? Never mind what we're sending to our neighbors. We are polluting. The line between legal growers and illegal growers is blurred. If they tell you it isn't, it is. And I heard even, 3 days ago, the excuse of, oh, it's okay to grade without a permit. We've always done it. Well, that's not an excuse for anything. That is not an excuse that is not an excuse to break the law. So I don't believe that we can have commercial cultivation in Calaveras County. And I believe that we also, due to the financial aspect of it,
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery.
are not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, your time is over.
Thank you.
Good morning, honorable board members and county staff. My name is Jack Norton. I'm a registered voter in District 1 and a registered farmer in San Andreas. I've come to speak, and also as a member of the Calaveras County Cannabis Stakeholders Group, I've come to speak particular about my experience as a member of another group, the Alameda County Cannabis Stakeholders Group. The Alameda County Group was formed in early 2016 in response to the passage of MCRSA. With cooperation and assistance from our champion there, Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley, the stakeholders meet once a month to discuss the evolution of the coming medical and adult use cannabis regulations. And as our relationship with county staff has grown into one of mutual trust and understanding, we, the stakeholders, became empowered to provide our subject matter expertise to inform and educate county staff when appropriate. There are occasions when the information we offer is even at odds with our own self-interest. However, we do so for the industry as a whole. Since our status as trusted experts is paramount to our working relationship with the county, we have an obligation to share what we know regardless of who benefits from it. In Alameda County, the first leg of MCRSA legislation took approximately 70 meetings to vet. Through town hall meetings, planning commissions, and full board meetings, the stakeholders were there to both educate and learn in a respectful manner befitting the legislative process. Now, as a member of that Calaveras County Cannabis Stakeholders Group, it is our sincere hope that we are able to develop a similar relationship with this county and to help craft sensible compromises that allow Calaveras to participate in the new cannabis industry. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you're aware, anything handed to the clerk during a Board of Supervisors meeting is a public document and it's not restricted.
I would like this read into the public record in the interest of public information. This is the email I received on December 26th of 2016 from Mr. Dennis Mills that should be underneath the purview of the Brown Act as he was an elect at the time. Ben, beginning in January, there will be several options to send email to me. If your email pertains to county business and you want your email to be reviewed by county council and at some point made available for public consumption, then use county.calaveras.california.us. For private conversations, please use dmills at 95251 at gmail.com. The Mills CCWD and Supervisor Mills at Gmail will auto forward to dmills95251@gmail.com for 30 days and then shut down to prevent disclosures of previous discussions under Public Record Act requests. During that period, I cannot respond directly to emails sent to those addresses, but will respond on one of the other two depending on the need for privacy. When sending emails to dmills@co, Calaveras, California, US, be aware a Public Records Act request will force disclosure of your email, including any other persons you may have sent it to. It would be very prudent to never use both of my email addresses in any correspondence to me or to other supervisors on the county provided email address, dmills, Calaveras County. Or send one email with email addresses of any non-elected person in the header, as the county will retain the email record even though I may delete it. Or forward emails with multiple other private email addresses in the header. If you do it, it will open up the alternate email address to further Public Records Act requests. Other email addresses should be removed from all correspondence to me to protect the privacy of others in the discussion. Please do not reply all or send emails with multiple email addresses in the header, dmills@co, Calaveras, California, US. It is our desire to protect our privacy and confidentiality of conversations where multiple people are involved. Thanks in advance, Dennis Mills. And I'd like to submit that to public. And I have extra copies of this email here. And just one word in my opinion: intent.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors, staff, and citizens of Calaveras County. My name is Stacy Johnston, and I am the CEO of the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. As many of you know, in front of me and behind me, the Chamber is extremely busy. Last week, we had 4 back-to-back events representing our county, and I want to publicly thank you, as far as our supervisors and our staff and our citizens, for coming up and showing support. We led the week off with our Good Morning Calaveras. It's a new program, monthly breakfast program that we invite a guest speaker to speak on important topics within our county. It's open to the public. We would love to invite our public to attend. We followed that up with our second annual Tri-County Chamber Golf Tournament, in which Supervisor Tofinelli, Miss Megan, and a few others actually participated in a team. And I'm happy to say that our county brought home the trophy again this year.
Ooh.
Yes, so thank you.
You didn't tell me that.
Then on Friday morning, we had our second annual State of the County breakfast. We increased our attendance this year by 48. We were up to 158 this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your address. And that's a great opportunity to get the vision of our county, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. It's important for all of us to come together and work together in this county. And then last but not least, the Chamber was co-hosting our first annual Pioneer Day, and that was a collaborative effort here in San Andreas with our San Andreas Rotary, San Andreas Merchants. We had help from Common Ground Senior Services, from our Sheriff's Department, from our CHP, multiple organizations that came together and made this event a success. So for those of you who attended and showed support, for our supervisors that attended and our county staff, the Chamber thanks you. And I know I speak on behalf of the Rotary and the Merchants. These endeavors are critical in our county, that organizations can come together, work together collectively, and provide valuable events. And this is great for San Andreas. As many of you know, San Andreas has long needed an event to call their own, and I'm proud to say Pioneer Day is that event. So again, thank you for your support, and thank you, citizens, for your support.
Thank you.
I'm back. Bob Bowerman, District 5, and I've been around here for about 17 years. And It's been a little while since I've been here, about 3 months, and that I was down with a little back injury. But I didn't miss a meeting. And the reason is because of these fine people, your audio and video people. They're awesome. They provide just an incredible service to our county. And so I wanted to come in and say thank you. Okay, that was me. Can we restart the clock? That was a PSA.
No.
I didn't think so. Okay, now I'm speaking for Calaveras Normal, the National Organization of Reforming Marijuana Laws, and that's what we do. We reform marijuana laws. I have been talking to people for over a year here locally about what are the problems and what can we do to solve them. And of course, the big one is residential, but we'll get into that a different time. The other big one was, since the urgency ordinance, we're seeing more pot farms everywhere. Part of it is the burn area, but the other part is because the way it was written. It's an excellent piece of ordinance. There's no question about that. But the setback, the way it's worded, you're forcing the farmers to put their product in the middle of their property. That's wrong. The way to do this is you do the setback not from property lines, but from the neighbors' homes. 200 feet would be fine, but from the neighbor's home, not the property line. What you're forcing the farmers to do is to take their grow and put it right square in the middle of their property. Of course people are going to see it. The proper way to do it, again, setting it by the other way, they'll be able to take their grow and put it where, at the back of their property, in the left right-hand corner, or what have you, where it's concealed. And where it won't bother anybody. So that is one example of a correction that will solve a major problem. If we do that, then you won't be seeing a lot of these cannabis farms, okay? We have a lot of things coming up, and I feel very confident that when we get done with our program for reforming Calaveras County's regulations, that 4 out of 5 of you will go along with that. I'll bet you 2 double cheeseburgers that's how that'll turn. Megan, is that legal? Can we bet on that? No. All right, skip
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Bowen.
It'll be taco
Thank you,
trucks.
sir.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Board. I'm Matt Brock. I'm from San Andreas, and I'm here today to share my perspective on cannabis in our county. My emotional side drives me to push for a ban on commercial cannabis, but my logical, practical side reminds me that attempting to enforce the ban on this county's budget would be extremely difficult, if not impossible to execute. Our deputies currently get paid a non-competitive wage, and we are unable to recruit and retain enough of them. My emotional side says a ban will get rid of the criminals and the cartel element. My logical side says the criminal element came in around 1990 after timber and cement left. In fact, my property got burglarized in 2013. My best friend's wedding ring got stolen in 2008, way before the urgency ordinance ever came. Being a bourbon drinker, my emotional side says marijuana is a dangerous drug. It is a drug, that's true. But I'm a career firefighter for the city of San Jose, and out of roughly 13,000 emergency responses I've been on, I've probably seen around 100 deaths caused directly by alcohol, hundreds of fights, thousands of ambulance rides. How many deaths have I seen from pot? 0. And I can't remember too many fights or disturbances from pot. So please, let's work on a compromise. Let's kick the polluting, law-breaking, dirtbag, illegal growers out of the county. Let's use the tax revenue from Measure C to give our cops a healthy raise. Let's hire a bunch more and kick out the meth heads and other criminals. Let's focus on bringing prosperity back to Calaveras. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, folks, for,
Not
that helps.
Due to popular demand, I bring you stories from the source, Double Springs, the first county seat of Calaveras, and of course, the center of the universe. Our heroine, Sadie, was born on Double Springs in the 1800s. When she was first married, someone come knocking at her door. Don't know if they came by stagecoach, horse and buggy, or Model T, but there was this church lady standing on her porch wanted to come in and talk. So Sadie invited her out back for a glass of lemonade. And they were sitting there talking, and the lady was sitting on the bench, and they were enjoying the day, and she was swinging her leg, and Sadie couldn't help but notice every time that lady's leg swung back, there was this little rattlesnake sitting under the bench, striking at her, but it was little, didn't make contact. So Sadie sat there, and she couldn't concentrate on what the lady was saying. She thought, if I say something, she'll scream, and jump up and run all around. She might get snake bit. So she sat there for a while, and finally she just couldn't hold it anymore. She says, "Ma'am, I don't want to scare you, but there's a little snake under your seat." Ah! She jumped up and ran around, did everything she didn't want her to do. She didn't get bit, but she never come back. Sadie learned a lesson. She told me what it was. It don't matter what you say or what you don't say. It don't matter when you do it or if you do it at all. What's going to happen is going to happen. So there ain't no use fretting about it. I thought that was a good lesson for me, too. I took it to heart. Try not to fret. I learned another lesson, too. I got to find me a pet rattlesnake. There's these religious people that come around my house, knocking at the door, leaving literature on my porch. I think that would do the trick. It worked for Sadie. I bet it worked for me. I give top dollar for a pet rattlesnake. Y'all hear one, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Raymond Smith from Valley Springs. I'm also the lobbyist director for Calaveras Normal. I have been for about a month or more. I was asked to join, and I'm very happy to be part of a great team here, and as well a citizen of this beautiful county. I would like to bring some attention to the final EIR, but also to Senate Bill 94, which has been passed just a few months ago. And signed by the governor. It's called the Medical and Adult Use of Cannabis and Regulations and Safety Act. It's a pretty long acronym, 7-letter acronym. It amended 51 amendments, 21 additions into laws, 7 repeals, 9 repeals and additions added to the Business and Professions Code, 46 amendments, 1 repeal to the Health and Safety Code, and 10 amendments to the Revenue and Taxation Code. It takes immediately effect. The bill relating to budget approved by the governor, filed with the Secretary of State, June 27th, 2017. There's also a Stanford School of Law Policy Lab article from the implementing of Prop 64, the marijuana policy in California. The conclusion that they had with the 3 policy options discussed have the potential to improve environmental compliance and enforcement with the cannabis cultivation industry. First, requiring limited liability corporations, LLCs, to disclose their beneficial owners during a UMA licensing process might help ensure those who do environmental damage are held responsible. And this is very, very important. Environmental damage is one of the most egregious concerns that I have, besides the effect on society and our community. I fell in love with the community, or with the environment, and the community came with it. I work in Murphy's, I live in Valley Springs. I know how tight-knit of a community this is. and I respect that. Speaking to the final EIR, I noticed that if it says is approved by the Board of Supervisors, the alternative would involve the implementation of countywide regulations specific to cannabis cultivation, processing, and distribution, and would impose similar restrictions to the proposed ordinance regarding the development of cannabis-related activities. My concern is that this may be another ban on dispensaries, and as well taking the rural residential ability for indoor and outdoor cultivation. Option number 4 would be, in effect, from the way I read it, a complete ban on patients and caregivers in rural residential. It's too restrictive, and I definitely think that we should look into that further. And I support you all. Thank you. Have a good morning.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the last speaker for public comment during this session. We're going to be exceeding our 30-minute timeline. We'll resume public comments after the last agendized item on the regular agenda.
Good morning, Joan Wilson, District 1. According to LexisNexis, there are a number of bankruptcies that you have, Mr. Mills. Bankruptcy information is 427.95, discharged 810.95. Bankruptcy information 728.92, closed, dismissed 1026.94. Judgments and liens, filings, Dennis Mills, and Vicki Mills, Central Valley Partners in Care, California, $253. That filing date was February 15th of 2006. Filing number 1, number 51903, civil judgment, Tuolumne, Sonora Justice Court. Number 2, California Judgments and Liens filings, Devder. Information, Mills, Dennis. Mills, Vicky. CB Merchant Services was the creditor. Jurisdiction, California, $987. August 30th of 2004 was the filing date. It was a civil judgment in the Calaveras Justice Court in California. Dennis Mills again, and Vicki Mills. The creditor was Central Valley Partners in Care for $221. That was May 21st, 2003. The number on that was 333071, civil judgment. That was Modesto, Stanislaus Municipal Court. Judgments and liens, the name was D.E. Mills, California, the amount of $544. Filing date was 3/25/91. Release date was 7/17/96. A filing was the state tax lien release, Calaveras County Court. Judgments and liens, the name of the debtor is D.E. Mills. That was in California, $544. It's a state tax lien, Calaveras County Court, California, Calaveras. I have an email here, Dennis Mills. This is from Dennis Mills to Timothy Lutz and Rebecca Turner. When attempting, this is a quote, when attempting to register to attend the CSAC discussions set for next week, I was informed there is no money in the budget for me to go. My attendance at these events were, we can present our narratives to the state partners, will not be dependent upon the budget. We will pay our own way if the event is important. This leads to another discussion concerning how much remaining in each supervisor's budget. Is this true, Mr. Mills? I'd like an accounting of this.
Ma'am,
because
your time is up.
relates to a specific situation.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll actually resume our public comments once again at the end of the regular agenda, last item. At this time, we're going to take a 15-minute break for our staff. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, apparently we have our audio and video problems fixed, hopefully. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any member of the public that wishes to pull any item from the consent agenda? Mr. Thomas, item 12.
Mr. Chair,
CAO
I
Lutz,
apologize.
go ahead.
May I interrupt something before? I was going to say, if I could request, we need to actually withdraw item number 12, at this point, coming back on a unidentified date to deal with some procurement discrepancies with this item. And then also pull item number 15 to be brought back on September 26th.
Okay. So, Rennie, we can do that. Sorry. Thank you. Mr. Thomas, did you understand what we're doing on this? Obviously, Russ?
Can you come to the mic?
Good morning. I'm former Supervisor Russ Thomas, and I'd like to request that I get notice on when this item is going to come back. Okay? Thank you.
Madam Clerk, can you make that notation and notify Mr. Thomas? Thank you. CEO Lutz, any other items? Okay. I'll bring it back to the public. Is there any other items from the public for any agenda item on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled and reviewed by the board here?
I couldn't hear both of them, but did you say item 15 was being pulled as well?
That is correct, Mr. Edson. Okay. Seeing none, we'll come to the board. Any items that wish to be pulled by any board member?
Item 4.
Item 4 by Supervisor Mills.
Can I pull number 11?
I'm sorry. Okay, number 11. Any other item by the board or staff? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept the remainder of the consent agenda.
I would move the remainder, Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
I would second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam
Item
Clerk.
4 is from the clerk recorder to authorize amendments to the clerk recorder fee schedule.
Good morning, Rebecca Turner, County Clerk Recorder.
Good morning, Ms. Turner.
I brought this item forward we did a fee study of all of our fees we collected in the clerk's office, and then we also went out and looked at other counties, like counties and our neighboring counties, to see what their fees were. And so we're basically just bringing our fees in line with the other counties, and our fee study justifies the increase. So that's what I brought to you today. Being the item was pulled, we did have a line item in our Schedule A that was incomplete, and since it's going to be the final, if it's approved today, I would like to give you guys these copies and swap it out. So, did you have any questions for me as far as specific items on the fee study?
Yes, Ms. Turner, the only reason I pulled the item was to basically indicate that many of our departments that are not really supposed to be impacting the general fund should be looking very closely at their cost versus benefit analysis to minimize the impact to our discretionary funds. And if this is a case where we do this incrementally, where a department may look at maybe some type of a fee adjustment over the next 6 or 12 months, that they come back again even over the remaining over 24 months and look at it again and make this part of their priority, to understand that if we're charging for a service, we have to have a return on an investment. And that's the only purpose for pulling it, was to be sure that all departments understand the value. We look at the budget coming up, and it's there. We're contributing to many of these departments on a regular and annual basis, It's simply because our fee structures are inadequate for the work that we're doing.
I would like it to make a habit that our department came forward every 1 to 2 years to update our fees. I think that's
Excellent.
good.
Thank you.
Ms. Turner? This may be a stupid question, but is our fee schedule published on our website?
I'm unsure about the county in total, but my department's fee schedule is posted on the website, yes. And
But
if
the
this is
revised fee, if should it pass, will be reflected on the website, so available to
Yes.
the public.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Further questions of Ms. Turner? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll come back and entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move the item.
Second?
Motion moved by Supervisor Mills, seconded by Supervisor Garamendi. No further public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk? I'm sorry, I rushed you.
Thanks. Okay, so item 11 is from Behavioral Health Services Substance Abuse Program. Authorize the board chair to sign an agreement with Calaveras County Office of Education for the provision of a Friday Night Live mentoring program in an amount not to exceed $60,000 for the period of July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018.
Good morning, Board. Marcus Munoz, Business Administrator, Health and Human Services. I pulled this item to clarify there is an error on the term length. It states through June 30th, 2018. In actuality, it should be June 30th, 2019 to fall in line with the contract. I am requesting that we vote on a 2-year term. This does not affect the dollar amount listed. The dollar amount listed there is for 2 years, not the 1 year.
Thank you. Questions of staff by the board or other staff members? Seeing none? Any public comment?
I just had a question of the 60,000, is that general fund or is that in their program?
The $60,000 over 2 years comes from a substance abuse block grant. It does not affect the general fund.
Thank you. Further public comment? Any questions or discussion by the board or staff? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Chair, I would move the item as amended to amend the date to June 30th, 2019.
Second?
Moved by Supervisor Mills, seconded by Supervisor Garamendi. Any further public comment before the vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk.
So just to clarify that the item 12 and item 15 have been withdrawn and will be heard at a later date.
That is correct.
Item 20 is from the Administrative Office to recommend awarding the Tree Mortality Program Project Manager contract to Tetra Tech.
Ladies and gentlemen, this begins our regular agenda. Item 20 is the first item on the regular agenda.
Good morning. Brian Moss, Administrative Office. Thank you for taking the time to hear this issue before the board today. As you're well aware, we've had a tree mortality program going on for the last couple of years, and I'm going to be covering that in this presentation today. But we certainly need to move on And today's topic is actually discussing a project manager proposal for the tree mortality program. So my little introductory speech for this. So again, thank you for the time today to talk about this. A little bit of background. First of all, tree mortality in the mountain counties, including Calaveras County, of course, is a result of a 5-year record drought that we went through, only being broken by the winter storms of 2016. Everybody knows the governor declared that the drought was over, at least in most counties, last spring. The governor first declared the state of emergency for tree mortality back on October 30th, 2015. Previous to that, he had declared an emergency due to drought, and of course those two are directly related to one another. The board adopted a local state of emergency for the first time due to tree mortality on November 17th, 2015. And on May 19th, an application for California Disaster Assistance Act, or CDAA funding, was sent to Cal OES. Cal OES approved the request for CDAA funds on October 21st of 2016. Background still and current status. Staff currently participate in the monthly local tree mortality task force meeting. That includes Cal Fire, that includes Cal OES, that includes private enterprise, that includes the state parks, and the local fire districts and other special districts. In addition to that, the board participates on the statewide tree mortality task force, and Supervisor Oliveira, I believe, is still the lead on that at the state. So during the monthly tree mortality task force meetings, Supervisor Oliveira and Supervisor Garamendi will also give an update as to what's happening from the state level. I threw that photo in of a bark beetle on the end of the match head to remind everybody that something so small can create such destruction. Pretty amazing. Current status continued. The board approved placement of the Cal Fire curtain burner and Cal Fire small lumber mill at below the old Red Hill landfill site. It's on approximately 5 acres, and it's below the toe of the Red Hill landfill, so it's not encroaching upon the previously permitted closed facility. The curtain burner is not currently operating, and that's essentially because Cal Fire staff are out fighting fires and don't have time to operate the curtain burner for this time of year. Cal Fire crews, however, do continue to operate the small lumber mill. Your IT department actually did some presentations to the board about a year and a half ago talking about the LIDAR program. And so it's a GIS program. And what they did is they've done a couple contracts with an individual to identify not only where the dead trees are, but where the dying trees are. Very valuable program. So that's something that's been done. That was actually presented at the state tree mortality task force. So, not unlike the Butte Fire tree removal program, the board's well aware there's a need for a dedicated project manager for the tree mortality program. There were several steps to this process, and beginning in April of 2017, an RFP was issued by the administrative office in an effort to engage a project manager to lead the county in the tree mortality program. 3 proposals were received from that initial RFP. Out of the 3, 2 of those firms demonstrated as responsive. In other words, they came back with a proposal that was something that was certainly possible to look at for the program. And so again, in the ability to implement the program. These firms, TSS Consultants and Tetra Tech, I believe both are present today, were subsequently interviewed, and with both firms citing their ability to expand beyond the program manager requirements. And it was interesting because, of course, those are separate interviews. But it's interesting that they both came in and said, well, if we're going to do this, let us really do this program, rather than just hire a project manager to sit down and start doing additional requests for proposals for, let's say, arborists, foresters and that kind of thing. So as a result, I kind of jumped ahead of myself, as you can see. Really what they were looking at was a way to accomplish the tree mortality program to include monitoring, inventory, and verification aspects of the program. So a supplemental letter was then sent out requesting the broader scope be included in their estimates. The scope included providing for project management, surveying hazard trees, identifying specific hazard trees using GPS, performing the right of entry program, or ROE, and conducting public outreach. Both firms then submitted their proposals. Tetra Tech also included a project closeout, an oversight model that was broken into two scenarios. It included oversight of contractors and monitoring, or what we just narrow the band and call it monitoring, as depicted in scenario A, and you will have this as part of your packet. This is the cost breakout for Tetra Tech. Versus providing oversight of contractors, which is simply validating to making sure the contractors are doing their job. I know that Tetra Tech can, Will can go ahead and clarify that even further later. And that's depicted in scenario B. Although an increase in cost, staff recommends, should the board choose to go with Tetra Tech as recommended today, that the board would consider choosing the oversight of contractors and monitoring option. I know it's more expensive, but it also assures the chances of getting our full 75% recovery from the CDAA funds. Remember, the county's cost, because of the declaration, is 25%. So TSS Consulting submitted an annual cost, while Tetra Tech submitted an entire project cost. Actual tree removal and disposal is not included in either proposal, and that's very important for the board to be aware. We're not talking about people that are actually out there cutting the trees down and hauling them off. Maybe some of the slash going to the curtain burner and the logs going down to the Port of Stockton or to SBI for the Blue Wood program. Upon review of the responses, it was determined that while both firms had a clear understanding, without a doubt, of the scope of the project, Tetra Tech demonstrated not only the ability to carry out the program, but also had the needed manpower in place to perform all functions of the program in a timely manner. And that's going to be a question before the board today. Because when you look at one proposal, it could take quite a bit longer than the proposal that we're recommending before the board today. And that's simply a manpower issue, as we saw and evaluated the actual proposals. So, again, if the board wishes to go with Tetra Tech, the cost of the general fund for tree mortality project manager at 25% would be $41.09 a tree. Depending if you go with scenario A, which is more expensive, that's the monitoring, or $48.28 a tree. Excuse me, I've got that backwards. $48.28 a tree is the more expensive one. Scenario A, $41.09 is B. So turn those around in that slide. Sorry about that. So depending on the expediency of the project closeout and oversight of contractors and monitoring. So although an increase in cost, staff recommends the board choose the oversight of contractors, as I just stated. Scenario A, the bottom line at 75% cost recovery through CDAA, the total cost of the program would be $1.390, $335,000. The county cost cited above would be $347,583.75. So with that said, I know that Will McGowan is here from Tetra Tech. I believe Tad Mason might be here as well with TSS, and so I'd like to open this up for questions.
Do you want to hear from them, or? I'll just hear from them. Okay.
I'd like to hear from them. Okay.
Well, we're going to go with the board first. Any questions of board or staff of Mr. Moss regarding this particular item?
I have lots of questions, but I'll wait till after the presentation by the applicants.
Likewise, I have questions too, but I'd like to hear the presentation.
Okay. That's the majority. Tetra Tech?
Will McGowan? Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Will McGowan, project manager for Tetra Tech. I've been working here in Calaveras with the fire damage tree removal project for almost the last year with Public Works. It's been a pleasure working with Calaveras County on that and assisting with the cleanup. With the tree mortality program, we have proposed using the same system that we use for the fire damage tree removal project. That's something that hasn't really been used across the state, so we have a very detailed ADMS system that allows us to do all of the provide accurate data sets for the tree surveying efforts. Currently, the arborist that we proposed for our program is Butler Enterprises, which assisted us with the fire damage tree removal project. So they're familiar with the terrain, they're familiar with the area, familiar with the tree species. We also have local staffing that we've used for the fire damage tree removal project that we anticipate to use on this program as well, so we can help supply local jobs and local staffing here in Calaveras County. So, and we are proposing to come in and perform this in a very timely manner so we can get this job taken care of and knocked out as quick as possible. On the fire damage tree removal project, we removed 8,453 trees in a matter of right at a year, and that included right of entry intake, that included the tree identification, that included all of the monitoring documentation for the tree removal, and it also included something that was unanticipated of the archaeological and biological monitoring services. Even with doing that amount of work and that scope of work within a one-year program, there was about a 3-month holdup because of the archaeological and biological services being approved in the later part of 2016. So we anticipate to come in here, make a very aggressive effort to do all of the tree identification necessary and to get this program done as quickly as possible for the county. Any questions or?
Questions of Tetra Tech?
I'll go back for discussion.
Okay. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions by staff or board? We'll hear from public comment.
TSS.
I'm sorry, what?
TSS.
Oh, TSS, I'm sorry.
Mr. Tad Mason.
I didn't know you were here, sir. I
Good morning,
apologize.
Board. I've been running stealth. Sorry about that. Good morning, Board members. I'm Tad Mason. I'm licensed forester and the Chief Executive Officer for TSS Consultants. Our firm is founded in 1986. We're based in Ranch Cordova, right up the road. And we're basically doing natural resources management services and projects all over the West, particularly Northern California. We've been active in Calaveras County since the founding of the Amador Calaveras Consensus Group. We're also very active at Wilseyville, helping the ACCG and CHIPS develop a renewable biomass power plant. We started there in 2011. We did the feasibility study and the resource assessments for that particular project. Also, and this is pretty important, we're currently retained by Amador County to fulfill this role, project manager role, for their tree mortality program. And so we're very hands-on, and we fully understand what it takes to be compliant with CDAA documentation in order to assure compensation back to the county. We're active with that right now. And I had suggested to county staff that they contact Amador County, but I'm not sure that's been done. As far as the question of manpower, I know that's come up a couple of times, and I, of course, respect Tetra Tech and what they've been doing. But their project currently is a little bit different than this new one coming up, because this being a state program, it's imperative that you be CEQA compliant. This is not a federal FEMA program, this is state. And so it will require licensed foresters, which myself and our team, we have licensed foresters. Several of them are located here locally. We've got Eddie Strufenegger based out of Jackson. We got John Romina here's in the audience. He's based out of Sonora. And both those team members would be available to hit the ground running. I know there's concern about a timely implementation, not an issue. We've been in business since '86. We've yet to default on our project. So as far as cost comparison, the budget that you have in your packet, I believe it's, our proposal's on page 222. I think we're very cost competitive. I know that, for Tetra Tech and for ourselves, it's really hard to estimate what the full project cost will be because tree mortality, as you well know, is very dynamic. It's really going to be hard to say this is a 1-year project or is this a 3-year project. We hope it's a shorter project, but you just can't tell. And that's from our real experience up in Amador County. Let's see. Other issues on the cost comparison. I noticed in the packet to the board that there was a modification in the Tetra Tech cost proposal effective September 6th. We did not have that opportunity. We would like to have had that opportunity to update our proposal cost estimate based on closing out the project or whatever additional services the staff was interested in. And I want to call that out. Just to sum things up, we have a strong team behind us. We have the technology we've developed in Amador County using GIS-based system. We're very efficient in the field using tablets to denote each dead tree location, photos, inventorying, and then mapping. So we fully understand what it takes. We've been successful with the CDAA documentation that Amador County's been submitting. There's been no hiccups, no issues there. So we're fully conversant and ready to get the job done. So that's TSS. Any questions?
Supervisor Garamendi? I'm sure we'll have some when we start the discussion. If you guys stick around for the discussion.
Yeah, I also have some questions, but I'm going to reserve those for the full discussion.
Very good.
Please stay.
Thank you.
All right.
I will.
If I may just address a couple of items real quickly. The cost proposal that Mr. Mason is referring to is absolutely correct. There is a change to this. There was actually a mathematical error that I had happened to catch on the spreadsheet. So I contacted Tetra Tech and asked them why the numbers weren't matching up, and they realized that indeed there was a mathematical error. So that is the reason for the change on this only. It actually doesn't work in their favor. It actually increased the cost. Not that I want to be the person blowing the whistle on that, however, the numbers are the numbers. So that's the reason for this updated proposal. Hopefully it clarifies that a little bit. And again, it actually increases the cost to the program, not decreases the cost. Cost competitive, absolutely. Without a doubt, TSS certainly maxed out on the review points on cost proposal and competitiveness. That's very clear, and I appreciate that. Also, I will say that Tad was in touch with me throughout the process, which I really appreciate. Not violating anything, just saying this is what we're doing. These are the programs we have going in other areas, so I did appreciate that as well. And then I guess the question I would have for Tad is really looking at the cost schedule. If we go down that road, what would be the cost, and what would be the cost to add those additional people to bring the program up to a quicker speed, if you will, for resolution? So I just wanted to address those out of the gate so that hopefully it clarifies that a little bit.
Okay. Any other clarifications?
That's it. Thank you.
Now we'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Garamendi?
I'll go first. Thank you both very much for coming, Brian. Thank you for this report. I, too, have reviewed all the documents. I have different conclusions as you and I have discussed.
Right.
I'm very familiar with the work of Tetra Tech over the last couple of years, being up here on the board and then in the community where a lot of the tree removal has happened, as well as butte fire recovery. Tetra Tech is a $2.5 billion company based in Florida. Is that correct? And your arborist, Butler Enterprises, is based in Gainesville as well, if I understand correctly?
No, sir. Actually, our corporate office is Pasadena, and we have offices in Rancho Cordova and Oakland, and we have numerous offices throughout the state of California.
Well, you're-
Our actual division for disaster recovery is, our office is Orlando, but our corporate office in Tetra Tech as a company is actually out of Pasadena.
You're part of the disaster recovery crew, correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
So your corporate office, where you report is Florida?
I actually been reporting to Oakland lately, so.
Okay. Where's your office?
I just moved to California, and I work between Oakland and Orlando. But, so I do report to Orlando, but I have now moved to California.
Well, clearly, Tetra Tech is not a local company. And Butler Enterprises, you're arborists?
Willie's actually here local, and that's who we've been using. Not for sure why he's using Gainesville, because he's not based out of Gainesville. He's here local in not Calaveras, but I believe Amador.
So I had a lot of complaints during the Butte Fire recovery about trees, which trees are being selected and not selected. That's not part of this RFP, but I just want to clarify, this RFP is for the management, not the A and the B that's part of their proposal, correct?
It was for the management. We expanded the scope at the request of both TSS and Tetra Tech.
Okay.
And that's why I want to say that Tetra Tech went on beyond to say if the board chose to have Tetra Tech look into the validity of the contractors when they move through the project, there's that cost. Am I correct, Will? Is that correct?
Okay. During the Butte Fire recovery, and since I've been on this board, I've done 3 amendments to Tetra Tech's contracts. The original one was for 1.2, and when we finished working with you guys, it was for $4.4 million. I've used the terms disaster industrial complex, pigs at the trough, lots of stuff. So you've given us our starter price. What's going to be your final price on this project?
So actually, I love now that I have the ability to clear that up. I know we had met briefly with Gary previously on that. We originally proposed at 1.2. I believe that was our initial proposal on, I believe, 5,200 trees for the Butte fire recovery efforts. During the surveying efforts, it's an estimate. And just as you said, you're trying to pin down that estimate. During the surveying efforts, we identified over 8,000 trees. And to date, we've done, 8,406 trees. To date, we've done 8,453 tree removals in Calaveras. So that increased our scope of work under our scope of work under that contract. Then, because of federal requirements, they identified that we had to include biological, archaeological, and tribal monitoring. So with that being said, GANDA, Garcia and Associates, their amendment, which was filtered through Tetra Tech's contract, was over a $2 million amendment. So Tetra Tech, our services that we actually proposed on initially, the scope of work went from, I believe, 5,200 trees to 8,400 trees. So that increased our scope from 1.2 to 1.7. Excuse me. And then the GANDA contract, once it was issued and it was filtered through our contract, our contract was used as a vehicle to award the environmental contract of monitoring services. GANDA's contract was over $2 million. So Tetra Tech services went from 1.2 to 1.7 off from what we proposed on, and that's because of the increased scope of work for the tree removals and the increase from 52 to 84. And then because of archaeological, biological, and cultural coming in, that is under Tetra Tech's contract, but it's not our services we proposed on. Does that help clear that up a little bit?
It does.
'Cause I know that.
I know that we did this in this recent amendment. You put in, and I appreciate Supervisor Tofinelli for pointing this out as well, but you put in space constraints. And then it came out again in this recent version that you were going to provide space. In your original contract to this county, you were to provide your own workspace, yet you pushed staff out of their space to occupy that. You want to tell us where you're going to put your people this time?
I would love to clear that one up as well.
That'd be great.
So during the beginning of the fire damage tree removal program, we met with Public Works. Public Works actually suggested and requested that we work in the county offices with the county. We offered to get additional space off-site, but by the county, we were requested to be in the offices to work more closely with them to increase the communications, increase program efficiency. During that time, when new administration came in, we discussed with them, okay, look, we understand that you're looking to use this space. I had met previously with CAO, Tim Lutz, and we offered to remove ourselves from it and get additional office space. We even proposed some language, if the county would allow us to stay, that we would sign a disclaimer, a waiver of any potential liability to the county of us being on county property. If not, we would be happy to remove ourselves and get another office. And then after that meeting had occurred, you had previously stated, okay, well, you're in our space, Tetra Tech's in the county space. And I would love to have spoken at that meeting and cleared that up, because we offered to remove ourselves from it. Betty, our contracts manager, had placed in there accidentally that the county was to provide office space, and I explained to her as she was generating the language for the contract, no, we will provide our own office space. We will use an office space here in San Andreas, or provide either a modular trailer or something to make sure that we allow the county to use their space. We do not want to invade your needed space for the county offices. So I don't understand where the miscommunication was on that, and I apologize for any miscommunication, but we have offered numerous times to make sure we're out of the county's way. So.
Does that meet the regulation of Public Works and our administrative office? Because it never came before the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
You have one of the problems I have, and this isn't specifically for you, Will, but we're paying $100,000 more to do this contract with Tetra Tech versus our local contractors and people, TSS. How are you going to employ local people and local contractors and guarantee that happens? Because there was a lot of non-local folks working in this last phase of recovery. And I appreciate the dollars they brought into our hotels, but that doesn't feed families in my community.
In the last program with the fire damage tree removal, the only out-of-town employees that were working on here was some of our management, as far as a data manager, a packet manager. Arborist was actually local to the area, but out of another county, adjoining county. And then the staff that we use for all of our monitoring efforts were all local hires.
I'm specifically thinking about, as you remove these trees, how are you going to make sure that's local contractors?
That is upon the county's award to whoever the debris contractor that is doing the debris removal, the actual physical removal. That's upon the county's decision of who's doing the physical removal. Our services that we provide for the project management is all, we intend to use local staffing. And to add to that note, we're currently working with Cal Recycle on the Detweiler fire cleanup in Mariposa, along with the potentially looking at the Helena fire up in Trinity County. And we have actually used 4 of the staff from Calaveras County that we brought over because they were great quality employees, and we've continued to keep them employed over there. And once tree mortality comes in place, then we're going to bring them right back to help out and assist with this. So,
right.
Yeah.
As part of the disaster industrial complex of this country, won't your people be mostly busy around Harvey and Irma?
We have, I believe we have almost 30 clients in Harvey. Right now we're doing activations for Irma, but we have multiple projects in California, and we have no problem staffing these projects. One of the reasons why is because we have so much local support in California with local offices that we have, whether it be environmental services, whether it be a GIS support, whether it be data management. We're able to use all the local resources up in Rancho Cordova, right in Sacramento, along with Oakland. We can bring staff in from those offices to assist. So.
I'll have more questions later.
Okay.
CAO Lutz.
I apologize to interrupt. I just wanted to make one thing of note before the board continued with questions, and that was I would provide just a little caution on specifically looking at local business as a basis for any decision. While right now this is state-only funds, there's always the potential that we get a federal declaration on this, which provides enhanced funding. Federal rules prohibit making a decision on an award based on local preference. And I just want to clarify that as the board's making any recommendation or consideration that local jurisdiction or local business can't be a deciding factor.
For federal contract, and that's not in front of us this time, is it?
That is not my general rule of thumb with anything disaster related, particularly of the size and scope of tree mortality, is if we get a presidential declaration, you can't go back in time and fix a process. You, from a disaster recovery standpoint, you always go to the highest standard and work out with the assumption that you could get federal funds.
Well, I've gotten no indication that the president's going to announce this. It hasn't happened in the last 4 or 5 years. So
I
cross
just
that bridge when we
wanted
get
to
there.
mention that piece as the board's deliberating.
Thank you.
And also for clarity, I apologize for jumping in, but the cost was brought up again by Supervisor Garamendi, and I may not have clarified really well about this other proposal, or the 9-6 proposal. What I would like to assure Mr. Mason is that the items 1 through 5 in the project phase that both TSS and Tetra Tech actually put numbers to and cost per tree, that didn't change at all. What had changed was scenario A and scenario B. Scenario A went from a cost, that's the closeout and oversight of contractors and monitoring expedited program. The more expensive one, it was $725,526. After looking at the numbers, it actually increased to $732,886. Scenario B went from $518,242 to $525,602. So I just for the record, I want everyone to be aware that this doesn't necessarily work in favor of, gee, there's less of a cost. There's actually more of a cost.
Supervisor Mills.
Yes, I'm going to kind of bounce around, so if you don't mind staying there, that's for the moment, that's fine. I would ask, first of all, that math error you just explained.
Yes.
So we understand that. Is this particular project or portion of it going to be in the 17-18 budget? Maybe I should ask the CAO that question. Because I don't recall this being part of the budget for 17-18.
The actual tree mortality program cost?
The program is, but this.
It is.
Okay.
Definitely, that is under the line item on tree mortality.
Okay, I just want to be sure that we're not adding an additional commitment here into the overall. I noticed that on page 4 of your proposal, Will, it says at the bottom in expenses that travel expenses include airfare and car rentals shall be invoiced at cost. That kind of indicates that you are going to be bringing staff from someplace else. In other words, you are admitting that your scope may require bringing employees from outside the state or somewhere else in the state.
Yes, sir, and that would be minimal. That would be a couple of management staff to help get the project kicked off and cross-train, and it's not, we don't anticipate that being a high percentage whatsoever of the project employees. Majority of the project employees, probably I'd say 90-95% of the project employees would be local employees that we've worked with here currently.
So for the staff, what is your expected length of this project going to be in this RFP?
We actually, as both Tad and Will have stated, it's really a moving target, so it's difficult to put on a specific time frame. I think that Tetra Tech is estimating, what would you be estimating, approximately a year, maybe a little bit more looking at the burn tree program?
Factors are right of entry, the intake, how quickly that can be expedited for identification of what parcels would need tree removals. And like I stated before, we had completed a sister scope, similar scope to this right here for 8,453 trees within right at a year, and that was with even a 3-month break because of approval for the archaeological biological contract. So we take a very aggressive approach with a very detailed data set that we provide. One of the things that we do provide is the portal for ADMS tracking, is where you have an interactive geo portal that you're able to use for GIS layer, and we're able to provide the same quality of services that we did for the Butte Fire damaged tree removals within the same time frame anticipated, depending on the number of trees. So we anticipate it to be less than a year, and that's also dependent upon the debris contractor that will be doing the physical removal and labor award and when they'll be put into place. And we're going to expedite the surveying efforts and identification. So
I would share Supervisor Garamendi's concern about change orders and how the scope could change during the course of the project, and if there's an ambiguous term in the length of the project, that would create more opportunity to redefine the scope. And so that also leads to, when in my world, coming from contracting, when you're 15% or more, then you maybe need to sit down and redesign what that contract really looks like. And that isn't in this RFP, so it's not your issue to deal with. It's just that we need to learn a lesson here in how we contract for this kind of work.
And I do want to use a comparison of that, and just like I stated on the Butte Fire damaged tree removal, the estimate I believe was 52. I want to make sure I'm quoting that right, but 5,200, and it was increased to 8,400. Actually, upon surveying efforts in August, September, we knew that there would probably be an additional change orders to increase our scope because of the increase of trees. I know we had communicated some with Public Works, but we didn't cross that bridge until it came, when we realized, okay, look, we're not going to be able to fit it within the current budget, even though there was an increase in scope. We didn't ask for that additional change order, or once the scope was increased back in August of 2016, we only asked for that additional funding whenever we realized we were going to reach our maximum compensation there, and we needed to continue. So there was full justification of why the change order was needed for Tetra Tech. And then I think hopefully I clarified the additional archaeological biological contract that was added for close to $2 million. So.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Ted, if you don't mind. Good morning. You were very clear in your breakdown of your organizational chart as to how the reporting structure was to work and who is going to be involved in what. When you put something like that in a proposal, what would happen if that should suddenly change? That you lose an employee, or that some reporting structure changes are occurring?
Right. Supervisor, you're referring to the organizational chart we submitted in our proposal, and
that's correct.
I'm really happy that you had a chance to read that. We've actually submitted two proposals now, one in May and one in June, and they both had organizational charts. It's a straightforward process to change that out and include a different forester, for example, or a different GIS technician. We have the ability to do that. We are a very small firm. We do have a cadre of associates that we're able to bring on, no problem, on a project level basis. So,
okay.
Not an issue at all.
Primarily my question or concern.
Sure.
So thank you.
Absolutely. One thing I would like to make clear, this process going in, because it's state-driven, is different than FEMA. You're going to need licensed foresters. I appreciate that Will mentioned arborists. You need licensed foresters because the forest practice rules kick in. You're going to need to file an exemption for each little project. You're going to need an RPF to monitor the licensed timber operator or the tree service companies that are out there. Our foresters are trained as archaeological survey experts, so we're able to, instead of bringing in an archaeological firm, we can actually do it ourselves. We also work with Stanislaus State to look up on their database what the historic center or cultural resource issues might be on each parcel. So we know how to do this. We've been doing it to the north, since December of last year. So we appreciate the chance to speak today and address this. So thank you. Any other questions of TSS?
I believe I have some questions. I'd like to address Will, could I speak? And don't sit down. I got something for you too.
Yes.
Will, you described the issues when queried by Supervisor Garamendi on office space, on procedures, and what was done during the Butte fire removal. Unfortunately, I was the only board member that sat in on those decisions when that came about. And I have the benefit of having the history of actually being there and part of that decision-making process. What you stated is absolutely correct. This project scope changed. It changed for the reasons that you stated, cultural reasons, historical reasons, if you will, additional requirements put on by Fed and state statutes. So, and you explained that very well. As far as the office space goes, you're absolutely correct there too. It was brought to my attention with this new board, and we looked into it, and we found out that yes, you did remain in these facilities at the request of the county for the exact reasons were to maintain closeness and coordination in this operation. You are right, both of you gentlemen are, because we don't know what the scope of this is. The additional information I have is I sit on these state boards, well, not state boards, but I sit on the governor's task force, and I realize how involved this is and not an exact science. You mentioned Amador County. 24 hours ago, I was seated next to Supervisor Lynn Morgan of Amador County. Does that name ring a bell, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay. How many trees are you in your proposal with Amador County are you estimating right now?
The initial inventory was close to 3,000. Because of other firms such as PG&E and Caltrans removing portions of those, we'll probably end up addressing around 1,200 trees total.
That's right, about 1,000 to 1,200. That's the information Lynn related yesterday. Unfortunately, apparently you're far more advanced than what Lynn's been informed, and I find that a little bit concerning. She stated that she just recently hired your firm to do their program. And I can understand because supervisors can't be everywhere at one time. But I don't think she related that the situation that you're performing in is not what she believes it is. I'll be in contact with her and find out where that problem could be. I'm not indicating that you're misleading us. I'm just stating that I was a little shocked that you progressed to the point where you're stating you are, and the supervisor says you're far less. But we'll look into that. One of the reasons that we decided as a previous board was the fact that the experience and the size of the operation required someone that could do the job. And as you may or may not know, if you folks were in attendance, that was not the least expensive bid. I think it was second place. We are in a situation now where we have to continue that. On a state level, there are 14 high-risk counties in the governor's task force. They just added 4 more. I believe Tulare County is involved in that now. Our mountain community counties are all the way up from Mariposa, Fresno, all the way up to Amador and above. There's only about 3 or 4 that have established for the tree mortality program a position or a program manager such as these companies offer right now. They're still looking. There are some people that don't even have an idea of what they need to do. More importantly, this is a state-driven program. These are state funds. There is a match that the county has to provide, and I'm not able to firmly or formally indicate that match will be reduced to a certain amount, but there is something in the works to reduce that 25% match down to 10%. We were just notified yesterday, I was in Sacramento at the tree mortality meeting, that CAL FIRE is a proposed $6 million benefit to the counties for this county tree mortality, but it's proposed, it hasn't been finalized yet pending the budget. So there's some other funds there. I'm telling you all this because we really need to realize the scope of what needs to be done here. And we don't have an exact science of what really, how many trees we need to take down. So we need to be very cautious when we're looking at these presentations, these quotes and stuff, because nobody's got a crystal ball. And I have difficulty seeing a contract or a proposal go through completion without having added costs. And change orders are very important. As things change orders have to be issued. I'm a very firm supporter of local workers. I agree with Supervisor Garamendi. But if we don't do this right and it blows up, we're going to be paying 2 or 3 times and then not getting it done on time. And with state money, folks, if you don't get things done right and on time, they're not going to reimburse you. That's been preached to us in Sacramento, directly from the governor's office and all through CAL FIRE. So as supervisors, we have to be very wary, very aware, and find out what we're looking at, because we're gonna live with this. It's like luggage; you can't get rid of it. So let's all take a good long look at what we're being offered here. And personally, I have to go with the experience. I have to go with the company that has the resources to do this particular job. Change as the environment changes, if you will, and make sure this project is completed. I do have a question of both of you. Do you have any plans for your storage and disposal of these trees?
So, and that's actually where we would work with the county to identify best means and look at that of how we need to process this. Right now, it's in the air of how it's to be managed, maintained, and handled. So.
Okay.
From our experience, I know, Chairman, you mentioned experience. From our experience in Amarillo County, we work closely with the tree removal contractors to dispose of material anywhere from the local power plants to the composite panel facility at Martell to Port of West Sacramento or McClellan for export logs to Sierra Pacific Industries. So we have a list. We have an ongoing supply chain arrangements with all those entities. And you are right, by the way, timing is going to be very important, because in the case, for example, of these biomass power plants, their power purchase agreements are such that they're on a calendar year basis. And if they can't get the forest material that they need to fill their quota, they'll convert to a different power purchase agreement and not have a requirement to take in this forest material. So I agree, time is of the essence, so you will want to ramp that up as much as possible. The other part about time of the essence is safety of the personnel removing the trees. As these trees start to degrade, we know we've had some mortality already. Unfortunately, human mortality, not tree mortality, but human mortality, because these trees are falling apart. And I would also concur that expediting the process would be important to address that as well.
Okay. Well, one of the problems that we faced, and thank God for our local people, I think Robert's in the back there, was storage and processing. And I'm very much concerned with these trees in Calaveras County, because we don't have a place to store. And you're absolutely correct about the mills and the cogen plants. They schedule their work, and they have to have a backlog of work to keep them going through their actual manufacturing period, if you will. And if they don't, they'll change to they'll retool, change to a different product. And then guess where are we going to put all these trees, like I have in District 3 up in Blue Lake Springs alongside the road? And it's not uncommon to have 25, 30 trees packed in the gutter. staked up by a log. If somebody, earthquake or whatever, that thing comes down, it's going to take out the road and everything else. But we're finally making progress on that. But these are the things that we don't see in our communities, and especially our supervisors. We have very limited exposure to this. Those things are very important when dealing with a project like this. Okay. Yes, sir.
I would like to add one thing. I know there's been discussion of federal and state funding and ability about that, but, you know, I have focused on getting this done in a timely manner in my presentation to you and making sure that we have the most accurate data set possible with the same system that we use for the fire damage tree removals with Butte. But we work with the state. We have worked with the state on the Erskine cleanup down in Kern County, the Clayton fire removal in Lake County, the Detweiler fire that we're currently working on in Mariposa, and potentially the Helena fire. Not to mention, we also were involved in the Butte and Valley fires between Calaveras and Lake during those large activations. I work alongside Cal OES representatives that sit next to me at a desk. We have a very strong relationship with the state, and we understand state funding very well. So just because we are taking the insurance of, well, I say the insurance, we are looking out for the county's best interest on doing the best documentation that we possibly can to make sure that the county gets their reimbursement. And if it does take the route of federal funding, which right now that's not on the table, but if it does, then we'll have the support and backup and the compliance to do so with the documentation that we're providing to Calaveras County. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit as well. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Supervisor Garamendi? Supervisor Tofinelli?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for right now. I see Robert's in the back. I'm sure he's going to speak, so I'd like to hear what he has to say. I too saw and highlighted in my program here in Tetra Tech's proposal about airfare and your indication of invoicing us as those happen. So that's not part of your proposal here? That would be separate change orders for those airfares and costs associated with transporting maybe somebody from Florida or Pasadena or wherever in addition? So we're looking at right out of the get-go a change order possibility for those expenses?
And I'd have to look at this right now, sorry, but
being spelled out the way it's being spelled out, I don't see it anywhere on your proposal that you had airfare included anywhere, and that other than
it's,
the small.
I can show you in the cost breakdown. It actually shows estimated expenses of 10%. So if you look in the cost breakdown, it has those expenses factored in. So there's no change order required, and it states clearly under estimated labor cost. Right below it is estimated expenses, and that's the factor for those costs.
That's included in that.
Yes, sir.
Other than the normal transportation.
Yes, that's included.
So you are including that?
Yes.
Because it was singled out, it's the only reason I'm asking that question.
The singling it out was just given the description of it being billed as actuals. So.
Okay, the other question I have, it says here, Tetra Tech also included a project closeout and oversight model that was broken into scenarios A and B as discussed below. TSS submitted an annual cost, while Tetra Tech submitted an entire project cost. So your proposal is based on entire project?
Yes, sir.
Complete?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other question I had is, I'm looking at, let me get to it here, our page 223.
And to add to that question there on the project closeout cost, we've factored in some other, and it's only if the county needs to use it, but we put it in there to factor in, grants assistance, grants administration, so we can assist the county with that closeout process if necessary. And our billings are going to be on actuals, so we just put that in there as it to be versatile and flexible enough for you to use other services if needed, but the only time those services would be used is if the county requests them.
I'm looking at our page, packet page 223, and it's your breakdown of labor. And you had said earlier that you would be using a local arborist? You
Yeah.
wouldn't be flying anybody from out of state in or down below?
No, sir.
So it's a local arborist?
Yes, sir.
And you have the arborists listed at the private property arborist, almost $10,000 per diem. And the right-of-way is almost $4,000 per diem. So that's close to $15,000 per diem for a local arborist.
And those expenses are estimated expenses. The only expenses that'll be billed is actuals. And like I said, it shows on there, we put in the 10% as a norm of estimated expenses. But Terry's coming from Lake County. I think Willie's coming from Amador. So it's local. It's a commute of a drive-in. So that's just a structure of putting the 10% estimate on there. But we do not anticipate using those expenses for those costs.
Well, you mentioned him driving over. This arborist is a separate contractor to you? You'd be a subcontractor to you?
Yes, sir. We actually have one that we've directly contracted. He's a Tetra Tech employee that we've hired on from Lake County. And then we have another Butler Enterprises. So that way, if we need to put 3 crews out there with 3 certified arborists, and we can license foresters, and we can do so. And we also have the resources that we can pull if necessary from Sacramento, Oakland offices and surrounding Tetra Tech offices for environmental work and services.
Okay, I'll wait for anyone.
Okay. Further questions of these two gentlemen by the board?
I noticed, Ted, that you had worked with Utica Water and Power,
Yes, Supervisor.
and is that on that recent tree mortality issue that they were working with?
We advised them on a pro bono basis on some tree mortality, and ultimately they hired Eddie Strufenegger, who we
Right.
have under contract to help us. And we also looked at a renewable energy project for them using biomass from tree mortality.
Okay, so that's where I remember that discussion, because I do attend their meetings fairly regularly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Did you ever interact with the state governor's task force?
Yes, one of my project employees, Dr. Harris, Richard Harris,
Okay.
attends those on a regular basis and has a working relationship with Peter Grace at
Okay.
Cal OES. Yes.
All right, thank you.
One more quick question.
You can
before
have it,
public comment.
Supervisor Gurman.
There seems to be a discrepancy between arborist and licensed forester to receive state compensation. You're talking arborist, you're talking forester. Sounds like we need forester. Do you have licensed
Yes.
foresters?
Yes.
So you're arborists or foresters?
Yes,
So-
sir. We have the resources to bring in licensed foresters. We do. And we have them on contract because we've done, we have them on contract because we've done numerous tree removal projects within the state of California and Lake County, Calaveras County, and assisting with the other fire removal efforts.
So is that part of this contract? That's not a change order?
No, sir, it's not a change order. I'm stating arborist out of the contract terms is why I'm stating arborist, but we have all the resources to do so.
Okay.
I have one more quick question. Please excuse me, I'm getting old. There was mention of the RFP submitted wasn't the same as a complete project. Am I interpreting that correctly?
That is correct. The original RFP was just for the project manager who would come in and write RFPs for the foresters, et cetera, to move through the full functioning program. Now, remember,
Now,
I know.
let me interrupt here, Mr. Moss. It's my understanding that that's what TSS submitted under that scope of the RFP. Is that correct?
Both did, yes.
Both did. And later in that conversation, I heard that that program has changed and both entities submitted that revised,
That
so
is
we're on
correct.
even ground on that one.
That is correct.
Okay,
On June
I just wanna
30th.
make
That
sure.
is correct. We're on even ground, absolutely.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it was interesting because when we interviewed both TSS and Tetra Tech, both of them independently, without our encouraging it, said, you know, why are we not looking at a fuller scope project? We can do this for you so that you don't bring a project manager in just to turn around and start writing RFPs.
They charge us for that?
Yes.
Thank you. Further comments by the board? Comments by staff? Thank you, gentlemen. How about some public comment? Thank you. Anybody want to speak to this issue?
My name's Pat McGreevy. I'm from Glencoe. And
Pat.
most of you know me as a Park and Rec Commissioner. I retired about 4 years ago, and I took up an interest in forest health and joined a team called the Calaveras Amador Forestry Team. So we're interested in forest resilience to wildfire, drought, and disease. And the disease part brings us into tree mortality. So I've followed tree mortality since the epidemic hit both counties. I personally surveyed about 400 miles of county roads in Calaveras County and also in Amador County. And our forestry team wrote the initial CDAA grant proposals for the state of California. So I have some experience. I don't understand why everybody thinks this is a big, complex problem. You know, foresters and loggers cut trees every day. And I'll tell you, other people do so too. I teamed with a guy named Pete Pedalford, and he lives in Blue Lake Springs. And since 2014, Pete Pedalford and then the volunteers in protection up there, a very organized, active group, have cut 4,000 trees. And you're right, a lot of them are laying there, but they're working at it. Now, if Pete and Pat can do this, you know, I guess we're pretty special people, though, actually. Pete was the Calaveras Volunteer of the Year in 2016, and I was the volunteer in 2014. But we're not foresters. Let me go to TSS. So when I read these figures, it says, my God, $1.4 million versus $230K. And I'm a taxpayer. And then I read the recommendation from staff, and we're going for the $1.4 million. So boy, there's a disconnect here. There's something wrong with TSS. So I called Tad Mason, and I asked him one question, two questions. I said, how long has your company been in business? He said, 30 years. How many times have you defaulted on a contract? And he was angry. The answer was no, none, never. So we have a company here that we call the A-Team.
Pat, I'm going to have to cut you off. Your time is up.
So they're bona fide, genuine people.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, and I'm sorry if they were covered, but I didn't get the answer. At this point, we're talking 25% of the money involved comes from the county. What are the other sources of funding? What would the manager's salary be? And between the two proposals, I think I just heard what the difference is in the amount of money. Then I want to ask, if there's milling being done, who owns the trees and what is done with the lumber? And is it sold and who benefits from it? And then finally, what is a Blue Wood program? I think that's 5 questions.
Okay.
So I could get an answer on any of them, I'd be happy. Thank you.
I'll address a couple of those for you, Bonnie. The 75% comes from the California Disaster Assistance Act, so it's the state of California, that's Cal OES, so that, and then the county makes up the other 25%. The issue with what's done with the trees, as you might have heard from both TSS and Tetra Tech, there are different options, everything from cogen plants for producing energy to SPI, Sierra Pacific Industries, doing the blue, which ties into your question about blue wood, the blue stain wood program. And the reason, without going too far into this, about the blue stain wood is that the insects actually bring in a mold on them when they're in the tree itself, and that produces that mold, which produces that blue stain. But so that's part of it. It's a non-structural wood, but it's
probably pretty.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty wood. So, and your other questions? I think there's 3 of them.
The wood, who benefits from it? Is it sold? Is it donated? I mean,
It would be potentially sold to, let's say, an SPI. The problem with the program initially was that for the cost of what it took to truck it to SPI was the same cost, it was the same amount that SPI would pay the loggers, so it didn't make sense for them to pick it up. My understanding is there's actually a market now.
Could I interrupt here, Mr.
Yes,
Moss?
absolutely.
Some of these questions probably might be able to be answered one-on-one. We've got people that really want, and I don't want to cut anybody short.
Okay.
I want to give you your time.
Okay.
But we have to get through our agenda, and maybe we can address one-on-one. That might be better, Bonnie?
The reason I ask questions is because if I'm interested, I think there's probably other people that want to know too, so that's
I understand.
why I
Thank
stick
you.
my nose in.
Thank you. Any further public speakers?
Hi, Cliff Edson, San Andreas, and I actually was involved in, actually before Tetra Tech was hired, and I know the reasons why they were hired. There was another contractor that was chosen. They apparently didn't meet the qualifications, kind of like what's going on right now. And so we were told basically that they were the only one that could do the job. I was trying to get a project manager in place in April of 2016. Pretty much got shut down. Instead, we have somebody that's getting paid out of admin to do it, and they don't have the experience to do it. They don't have the qualifications. And so we need real foresters from that have worked here, that work in our county, have worked on our fires, and worked in the local counties to do this, because they know all the ins and outs of everything. They know the market of forest products here. And so, getting the trees identified and down is just one thing. Where are they going to go? What are you going to do with them? How are you going to get rid of them? How are we going to make an industry out of this to where, maybe somebody around here can locally go to work? That would be good. And cost the county as little as possible, because we really can't afford it. So nothing against Tetra Tech. I think they came in at a very interesting time, to say the least. They did a pretty good job. I know that there was a couple of change orders. This isn't going to be a one-year job. I'm telling you right now. It's going to go on and on for a little while, until they find other ways to fund it. So TSS, in my opinion, has the skills and the people working for them that are local. I know a couple of the foresters that work for them. They know this area. They've been working here for like 30 years. They know this area, and that's the people that we need managing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion by board members? Supervisor Garamendi?
Mr. Chair, we have two proposals here. We have a staff recommendation for Tetra Tech. We have a proposal from TSS that is $100,000 less in front of us. We have, I have spoken to numerous people. You and I represent most of the woods. And I've spoken to a lot of people, men and women, who work in the woods, and they like the fact that they've got Robert's telephone number on their speed dial, or John, or Tad, and they know these woods, and they know the people, and they know that, as the Colonel said, this isn't that complex. We just need to do the work. We don't need as many fancy proposals as perhaps a $2.5 billion company does, but we have to just do the work. It's not that complex. It's about local resources and local people. I would be prepared to make a motion to not accept the staff recommendation and instead accept TSS's proposal. When we're ready.
Might I make a comment before?
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
I've been regularly attending the Foothill Fire Safe Council meetings as well, which presents those unique challenges that you spoke to, and for private property owners, and how do they deal with these on their ground, and the grant funding opportunities. How do you make all of that fit? So Blue Lake Springs is part of it, but it is not all of it, and I have a very close semblance to this from the history of my own family. So if there is no further conversation on this from the board, I would prefer to second the motion to Supervisor Garamendi.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi to not accept the recommendation of staff on this particular contract item, seconded by Supervisor Mills. Is there any public comment?
Procedurally, I might add to that amendment to authorize the CAO to basically sign the contract after it's put into that, the contract boilerplate language with TSS, if that's what the board wishes. I just want to make sure that we don't have to bring this back to the board again for authority. So we'll want to provide the CAO some discretion to then go ahead and execute that contract.
I withdraw my second so that amendment can be made.
I withdraw the motion, restated as a CAO. Let's put forward to not accept staff recommendation for Tetra Tech, but rather accept the TSS proposal and authorize the CAO to enter into a contract as such.
I would second that.
Okay. The amended motion has been made by Supervisor Garamendi, seconded by Supervisor Mills. Any discussion by the public on the amended motion or the withdrawn motion and the new motion? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. No. Motion carries 4-1.
Real quickly, I'd just like to state that, and I apologize for this, copies of this PowerPoint presentation should be in the room any minute. And what we'll do is, as we're moving on, we'll just have them outside the door here. So anybody that wants copies of the PowerPoint.
And Brian, it is in the agenda packet if someone would like to see it online.
It is in the agenda packet, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking your time. Madam Clerk.
Item 21 is from the Auditor Controller to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance adding section 2.24.040, establishment of reduced time periods allowed by statute, specifically for issuance of duplicate warrants. Authorize staff to publish a summary of the ordinance before the second reading as required by law.
So currently, we have no ordinance in place in terms of producing replacement checks, and so we just have to follow government code. Government code requires us to wait 20 days before we could repost that check. That would include checks to employees and checks to vendors. The issue that I see in this is that times have changed, and we do positive pay with the banks. We have a lot of security features in place with the treasurer and with our banking establishment so that we can ensure that if we are going to replace a check, we verified it hasn't been cashed yet, it's not in circulation, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that in order to give the best service to our vendors and to our employees, it would make more sense to shorten that time frame. I have proposed to set the ordinance at 7 days as opposed to 20 days. That would be sufficient time that someone would be able to come forward and request a replacement check.
Questions of Auditor Callen by the board? Staff? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the item.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. No further public comment. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 5-0, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Callen. Madam Clerk.
Item 22 is from the Administrative Office to receive a report from staff, Cal OES, and local organizations regarding the ongoing Butte Fire recovery.
Is there any presenters? Oh, Mr. Moss.
Once again,
Welcome. Haven't seen you for a while.
good morning, board.
Change uniforms, change hats.
Absolutely. Real quickly, this is your monthly update for the Butte Fire recovery. Calaveras Recovers is here today, and they're going to be doing a presentation as well that's loaded on the computer. So with that, the board knows the routine. You know, this is your opportunity to ask where we're at as far as the Butte Fire recovery is concerned. It gives the public an opportunity to be informed and ask as well. So with that, I will turn it over to the individuals in the audience. And again, Lori Giannini is here to do a presentation for the board on Calaveras Recovers this morning. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Stevens, can you tell us approximately how long your presentation is? 15 minutes? 15 minutes? We can do that. Okay, we can do that.
First, on behalf of Calaveras Recovers, we want to thank you for the proclamation. And unfortunately, this morning, a couple of our board members could not be here. Our chair, Alan Sender, and our secretary, Marcus Cologne. That's right.
Okay. Is your microphone on, Ms. Stevens? No. Okay. Push the button. There you go. Okay.
Just so you know, you need to speak directly into the microphone. So if you're turning your head to look at the screen, please turn your microphone as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we are Calaveras Recovers, and our annual meeting is October, and so as been our tradition, we started last year to report out to you annually, and this is our time to do that. Calaveras Recovers is the long-term recovery organization to assist in the aftermath of a disaster. Our list of board of directors is there. Our chair, Alan Sender. I'm the vice chair, Secretary Marcus Kalanch, treasurer, Tony Ann Fisher, public relations, Nikki Stevens and Kathy Campbell. Our volunteers, in charge of volunteers, Tom and Becky Hall. Our case management folks, Kathy Hool and Debbie Calco. And our volunteer case manager, who's not on our board, Carol Phelps. There's a picture of Carol with one of our clients in their new home. We are our 501c3 fiduciary is Amador Community Foundation. Our website is calaverasrecovers.org. We have 3 volunteer trained managers, and we have a project manager funded by the Red Cross, Robert Cairns. We share him, though, with the Red Cross, so as you can imagine with fire season and everything else, he's been deployed quite a bit. These are our national and state farm partners, and what's important about these is we have now developed relationships. So we know who to call, and we know how that works. FEMA, Cal OES, UMCORD, World Renew, National Mennonite Disaster Organization, Christian Aid Ministries, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and St. Vincent de Paul. This is a group of our volunteers. They built half of the homes that we have finished. They're called World Renew. They are a faith-based organization, and they actually stayed at the fairgrounds during their stay, and they were here October 2016 through April of 2017. And they rotated. Many of the folks were from Canada. They liked to come here. They thought the weather would be great. We had a very wet winter, so it was interesting for them. But they were great. And there's some local folks in this organization out of the valley who are still working on a couple of homes that we have right now in process. Mennonite Disaster Services, another one of our faith-based partners, they stayed at Camp Lodestar in West Point. An amazing group of people, again, from all over. Mennonites, several Amish families came and worked and helped build these homes. Our local partners, of course, was Calaveras County, and I know that Building and Planning were very cooperative when it was time to get our plans in and get them going and all of that. And again, the supervisors for their support, and case management and, social services, which you guys don't call social services, but I'm losing my train of thought. Human services. Mountain Ranch Fire Fund Relief, Calaveras Community Foundation, the Amador Community Foundation, many local churches and organizations, the Resource Connection, and the Church of the Nazarene in Sutter Creek. We had many local partners who were also in business who either gave things to us at cost or complete donations. That was Sender's Trust Company, Sender's Hardware, Middleton's and Angels Camp, Better Floor Systems in Wallace, and Cal Waste Recovery Systems. Our numbers, and you heard some of this with the proclamation, but World Renew actually reached out to 109 Butte fire survivors by phone. They made contact with 361. The stats were 165 were without insurance, 30 growing a federally illegal product, 10 rebuilding on their own, 125 not primary residents or moved, and we had 31 potential rebuilds. Calaveras Recovers opened 200 cases, and out of those 200 cases, we've been able to close 190. In other words, they no longer have needs that we can meet. Calaveras Recovers had an office in the Mountain Ranch Park, and for 18 months we provided the following: distributed gas cards and other necessary items, assistance clients find necessary resources. One thing we were able to do early on, and this was really helpful for people in the burn area, is we were able to work with a manufactured home company who gave our clients manufactured homes at cost. And so that was a much quicker solution for many of our clients than going through the build process. Our case management was huge. Everything from just letting people talk to helping them find the resources they needed, whether it's through Red Cross or Salvation Army. House in a Box from St. Vincent de Paul, that was another amazing program. Our volunteer coordinators, Tom and Becky Hall, did a lot of work on that and getting those to our clients. And besides building homes, I think emotional and spiritual care was a huge function of that. Actually, I would half jokingly say, can I sign up? I mean, 4 of our board members actually were affected by the Butte fire. We did not lose homes, but we live in that area every day. And so we realized early on how important it was for people to have somebody to talk to. We have some local pastors who are still in counseling with some of our clients. It's an ongoing process because as Supervisor Garamendi said in the proclamation presentation, it's something that we live in every day. And so it's not something in our memory. It's not something that we can forget about too easily because even if there are folks who have rebuilt their homes or got modulars, their trees are still gone. I mean, their community has completely changed. And so emotional and spiritual care by both the folks in our trailer and also by the folks who actually built the homes was huge. Building homes, qualifications. So people ask, how are you chosen? Well, uninsured or underinsured, this is something we had to just, FEMA pretty much directed us, and you kind of got to get your mind around why didn't you have insurance, and just kind of put that aside, because there's 100 different stories, and legitimate or not, it's not our place to judge. They have to be able to sustain their home. In other words, we can't build a home and then not be able to afford the taxes, or they have to be current on their taxes, be able to pay insurance going forward, and that's been tricky, finding people companies who will insure people up in the burn area. Not participating in an activity that is federally illegal, and agree to sign a covenant. Our covenant is that they will not flip the house, that they have committed to staying in it 5 years. This is just a great picture of World Renew doing some work on the houses. Again, work on the houses up there. It was very exciting to see all the progress. Building 10 homes. We've completed 6. One on Harbor Road has a temporary occupancy permit, and we have 3 in process. The last 3 homes are going a bit slower because our volunteer organizations left in May. And so they're coming in and out, and local people are helping in that process. So there's another picture of one of the great houses. This was one of the dedications. The Mennonites do a dedication of the homes. You can see a lot of the neighbors are there from Mountain Ranch just celebrating this moment. Finances. Tony Ann Fisher, who's in the audience, has been our diligent bookkeeper in keeping all of this straight. Our total donations were over $600,000. Clients' funds are designated funds, so some of our clients partnered in the building of their house, so they used their FEMA money or perhaps their PG&E advance to build their home. Or Calaveras Community Foundation or a local church gave money and said, we want this money to go to so-and-so's home. And so those are designated funds. We had other funding like from AT&T and other sources of $10,000. Our total revenue was there almost $1 million, and our total expenses today are $892,759. And we're very proud to say not a single salary, not a single reimbursement, nothing was out of these funds. So there's another, I think this is House in a Box getting delivered. You can see one of the beds there. So this is just after completing the rebuild, Calaveras Recovers will remain intact and ready for the next disaster. So as I said, if we've learned anything, we've learned how to build these relationships. We know who to call. We know how to deploy the faith-based organizations who will come in and give our community assistance. And it has been challenging, very challenging, and rewarding for us to serve our community in this way. So do you have any questions for Nikki or I about the?
Yes, I do. I noticed that you had your income breakdown. Do you have an expense breakdown?
Yes, by house.
By house. I mean, is there any administrative costs or anything like
No.
that as an organization?
No.
So basically, every dollar that you receive in donation or other sources goes right to the building of the homes?
The only admin cost we had, we pay 3% or 2%, Tony Ann? 3%. They gave us a discount. We pay 2% to the Amador Community Foundation for processing our checks and doing all of that. But that's
Excellent
it.
program, folks.
So, thank you.
Excellent program.
Thank you.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Lori, I said a lot of this before, but I just cannot thank you and Nikki and the volunteers, all that are part of Calaveras Recovers. Watching your team work was inspirational. Watching the faith-based organizations come together, different denominations, but really walking their walk and helping people was moving. Your courage personally during the fire, while your husband was on the line and the fires were burning around your house, and opening up the fairgrounds and the work that you did. Thank you. And thank everybody.
Further comments by the board? Any public comment?
I would also like to thank the entire board of Calaveras Recovers. You guys did a fantastic job. You really did. And it's well appreciated. Although my district was not affected, but, I know you guys did whatever you had to do. So thank you very, very much.
You were affected. We're actually in both. We have you and Jack. We're in the split.
Well, strangely enough, I think we all were affected, and I don't think words can explain dedication. It can't explain passion as something that is internal. And I think that the entire board and all of the volunteers that you have, they displayed that without question and without challenge. They stepped up at every step and turn to do what was necessary, and it worked. So now you know the relationships are there for the next time, and I think we've built a very strong future from it.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note that our entire board voted unanimously for us to stay intact. God forbid if there should be another disaster, but we hope that the residents and the leadership in this community take a little bit of assurance and peace in the fact that, like Lori mentioned, we have the resources available. We are ready to go if we are called upon again. So thank you for that support. It takes the entire community to support us and beyond, and we're really, really grateful for that. We just ask for your continued prayers and support for all of our residents in Calaveras County.
Public comments?
Public comment, yes.
Okay. The Taxpayer Association is very grateful for the work you've done. Also, the real estate industry is grateful, and if you have an idea of what their contribution was, perhaps you could share that. I understand it was substantial. The second point is I understand there's a responsibility for this fire from PG&E, and there's monies that will be paid in the form of settlements to the people that have been hurt. And how does this play into the work's been done in the way of donations? Thank you.
So we have, in our covenant, we have asked that it is not a demand. It is not something, that they have to do. We have asked that our billed clients, if they were to receive a settlement, that they pay it forward, that they donate back. And so so we haven't seen that yet, because of the way things go. And so we'll see where that happens. But because there's no telling on how long that can take, we didn't feel like we could hold our clients hostage. We have a gentleman who's in, of course, District 2, up in the Mountain Ranch area, who came by my office last week at the fairgrounds and talked to myself, and then later called and talked to Tony Ann, and then talked to me again, and he said, well, I need to pay my bill. And I said, well, you don't have a bill. He goes, and this man's disabled, and he says, I don't have a bill. He goes, well, don't I need to pay for my materials? And I mean, there was no way at this point where that man could even come up with that, but he felt that responsibility. And I said, no, your home is a gift from your community. And the phone just got quiet because he was so blown away. And then he called and talked to the next day, and he said, I still can't believe what you told me. So, and it was very heartfelt. And I got to tell you, for me, that one conversation made it all worth it.
Okay, thank you. Further public comment?
I'm Sharon Torrance. I've had the privilege of working with Calaveras Recovers, and in the beginning, when I was told or heard what they were planning to do, I couldn't imagine how that could realistically happen. And Calaveras Recovers board, all of them have real jobs and families and other commitments, and put their heads down and put their heads together and made this happen. And I just think they're amazing, and I've really enjoyed attending meetings and hearing the progress, and want to personally thank them for their efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we love you too.
Yes, we do.
Bertha Underhill from Abbott's Pass, and the presentation, the slideshow was just so overwhelming, Lori and Nikki, and I've talked to Nikki on a lot of occasions, and we sit up on the hill, and we didn't see a lot of that. I mean, you had a lot of volunteers who came down, but I would say that the majority of our population did not know to what extent this program was. And I'm just so grateful to hear that you will maintain the model for us, because we've bit the bullet 3 times already just within the last few years. And it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. And so we'll just be so grateful for you. Wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertha.
Good morning, Raymond Smith with Valley Springs. I just wanted to extend on behalf of my family. I wanted to thank you for your services and everything you do for the public and for others. I'm still learning about all of this. I had a chance to drive up the hill within the last 2 months up to Blue Mountain and down through Jose Maria, Railroad Flat, saw a lot of the devastation, and developed a great big reverence for your help and everything that you do. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. Welcome. Stacy Johnston, Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. This group, Calaveras Recovers, exemplifies true servants' hearts, and you do it selflessly, as being a part of the Butte Fire and the devastation and the recovery efforts, and seeing firsthand what took place 2 years ago, to have a group of individuals step up to the plate and not one ounce of recognition. They don't do it for the recognition. They do it because their heart bleeds community. And on behalf of the Chamber and me as a resident, I thank you. I thank you, Kathy and Tony Ann and the others who are not here. That's what our county is about. Regardless of all the other controversial issues, our county is about this type of organization, and how proud we are as a community to have you represent us. So I thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board and staff. This is an informational item. There's no action required on this.
This is true, but I don't know if there's any others that will be making reports today.
Okay. Any further public speakers or anybody making presentations on behalf of Calaveras Recovers? Okay, thank you. Staff, you can do that.
By the way, I too will applaud seeing this wonderful work. Mel Knight, I'm the Butte Wildfire Community Liaison, and here to just update you once again on the duplication of benefit obligation associated with the debris removal program. I'm glad to announce at this point, at least, we're nearing the finish line, and we're in fact working on, and I'll give a little more information on it, but on a closure plan, which is now out for review. And so we should be finishing before too long. As a reminder, there were 883 properties that were part of this program. The state and federal assistance provided $100 million in cost items related to the removal of 500 million pounds of potentially hazardous debris. 579 of those properties reported that they had insurance, and as sort of was related here a bit, that if someone had an alternate source of funding. This wasn't a voluntary commitment, but there's actually a federal law that says that that should be invoiced so that if they receive funds for that purpose, it is to be returned to the state and federal coffers. They put that obligation on the county as the applicant for this funding, and so that's what we've been engaged in for the past several months. We've made outreach to all 579 of those with these. We've been actively engaged in the invoicing. It continues to occur. We've had now $2.7 million in dollars collected. Expect to eventually see that go to about $4.5 to $5 million, and then probably the next 6 to 8 weeks, because we're now working with 5 insurance companies that have the predominant number of those cases. The closure plan is now being circulated by Tetra Tech, the contractor that was selected to do this work. I'm overseeing the project with the county administration. The project is under budget. The project should be completed on time, and we expect this to be, again, resolved. As I've mentioned in the past, this isn't an easy project. This is one that while we're engaged in public service, to actually go to fire victims and ask them to write a check to the county is sometimes not the most pleasant of tasks. Particularly, there was a long delay in getting the cost information. There's issues that relate to complexity of insurance coverage. So this has been a fairly complicated process, but we have been fortunate. We've had a lot of assistance. There's been active engagement by the county administration, by county council, by auditor controller, by PIO, by, again, variety of parties. Supervisor Garamendi has been actively involved in a lot of the review as well, and this will go on until the termination of the project. We expect this to be completed by the end of the year, and that's the current plan. I'll continue to give you written updates as well as these progress. And I'm prepared to answer or address any questions you might have.
Hello, Mel. Thank you again for all your work on this. I join you in a desperate wish for this project to be complete. It is not easy, and it's an interesting burden put on us by the state and the federal government as a small county. And I look forward to handing this over to the state and joining the advocacy effort against them instead of being on the other side. We have several large issues that we're taking. These are the hard nuts at the end of this. What do we do with people who've gotten debris removal monies given to from their insurance companies, and they use those funds to remove debris, perhaps outside their house footprint, but on trees or fences and other things, and then trying to help them advocate with the state that that money was not put in their pocket, but was rather put in work and cleaning up on their properties. And I know, thank you very much for your time yesterday in the meeting with the community. Yeah. And I think we'll have more of those, and we'll begin to integrate the state agencies as well as the federal agencies as we begin to hand these lists over to them, so that our people can continue, we can advocate for the work that they've done. But you told me at the beginning that this is going to be the last 5% that's going to be tough, yeah. And we're there.
Yeah, the specific issue you mentioned on where someone has done some of the work and had some of the expenditures, it would appear, at least to us, that wouldn't be a duplication of benefit, meaning that if you got $15,000 from your insurance company and you documented that you had $5,000 in personal expense related to debris removal, only $10,000 would have been the duplication of benefit amount by some logic. I'm very careful as I advise folks of that logic that the county does not control the process. We do not speak for the state or federal government. That we can say if you wish to, you certainly can submit your receipts, submit this information. We are, for lack of a better word, a mere conduit, meaning that we will take this information, we will provide you with the cost information, we'll try to help you with figuring out what your obligation may be, and if you choose to either withhold some or do something or have an objection, we do not take enforcement actions, we do not take actions that relate to something that might be punitive or negotiations. We're not empowered to do that. We merely will turn that information over to the state and federal government for them to determine whether or not that satisfies their obligation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Further staff report?
Sharon Torrance, Public Information Officer for Butte Fire Recovery. I've basically been working with Mel Knight on the insurance duplication of benefits program, and also still answering a few calls, escorting some people down the hall, and working on press releases and pushing out some information on the Facebook page, Talking to Media. Those have decreased a lot, but still continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further staff report.
Question.
Supervisor Garamendi.
This could be for Mr. Kovitz. I see you're here. Mr. Lutz, you may be able to assist in some of this. I was hoping you could tell me how we're, Mr. Kovitz, I'm hoping you could tell me how we're doing on getting a FEMA and Cal OES extension for the 2-year mark that's due on the 20th.
All requests have been submitted.
Tim?
As of yesterday, I had correspondence back from Cal OES indicating that the one that we had submitted a letter on recently, I copied Mr. Krovitz on it yesterday, was approved. Essentially, they were getting the paperwork together, and we should be receiving that letter today, indicating that the extension has been approved on the Cal OES side, and we had received correspondence prior to that on the ER roads, which are the federal side. So at this point, we have received confirmation from both sides that that we are getting the extension. We're waiting for those final letters to be here in hand.
So you've got verbal and we're waiting on red.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On the May 9th, 28th, and May 9th, June 27th, and August 8th, I asked these questions. So here we go again. How are we doing on the project manager person for the roads?
We prepared the RFP as directed and submitted for review through the process within the county, and we are still waiting response from some offices here in the county.
So we have an issue, it's not on the street?
That is correct. There was a discrepancy in terms of how it got routed. It is in my office now, and it is anticipating to be going out. Getting tree mortality and this were the two high priorities on our disaster, and we should be issuing that RFP, I would say next week would be our goal to get it on the street.
And it'll be out on the street for a month, or how many weeks?
I can't remember the exact timelines we did. Obviously, some of that we try and set it as tight as possible, hoping that we get applicants with the option of then being able to extend that timeline if we don't get responsive applicants.
Okay. On those same 3 meetings, I asked about a dig once policy.
Putting together that in Public Works right now.
Have you spoken with Mr. Maurer about it?
I did speak with met with Mr. Maurer and the Land Use Committee on it as well.
Okay.
So we will get that in front of you.
Okay. And I asked about the issue of road rebuilding. FEMA and the states are telling us we have to bring it back to the standards that it was before. Those standards in many cases weren't to current code standards. Have we worked out that issue with the federal and state government?
We haven't gotten any, how should I say, relief from either state or federal agencies, either FEMA or FHWA, in terms of allowing us to do current standards versus the condition of our roads on the day of a given event. And if we want to do that, then it becomes, there are several choices we can have. We can pay the difference, essentially, from what the federal agency determines is the recovery share. And there's another grant program, but that, looking at it, it appears that it would not be as good, where the county would accept a certain value, and if we could bring it in for less, we could keep the difference, but if we bring it in for more, we fund the entire delta. And the way the programs are working, it appears to us that it would be a better method to just do the repairs to bring it back to where they were. If they cost more than was estimated by the federal agencies, we could request reversion and we would get they would pay their fair share of that. So that seemed to be the most advantageous to the county.
I understand. I think that, you've been talking with them about this certainly since I came on board. I think I would like to advise that we write a letter stating exactly what we want and why, because I think that we're getting stuck in this bureaucratic spin, and there's nobody who would logically say, take a road that was not to safety code and rebuild it to unsafe code. I mean, I could see how in a bureaucracy I could get lost, but the logic should fail as it moves up the food chain, I would think. And I think that this gives us something that we could begin to talk with Federal Emergency Management Agency about rebuilding our roads correctly. Like we've mentioned before, we wouldn't ask a private citizen to rebuild a road that wasn't to code. We shouldn't do it either.
We can certainly prepare letters and send them out. We have to do our communication through the state,
Well,
the
then
two
we'll
agencies.
send it to
and then
everybody.
Okay.
Yes, as part of the FEMA CalOES training that was conducted here recently, you recall that FEMA said that if we had policies in place which were more strict or more current than what their policies were, that FEMA said they would defer to our policy over theirs. And I would like to keep that in the forefront of this discussion, that if we have policies that state our county roads must be maintained to a specific standard, that those standards, according to FEMA's own statement to me, was those standards would apply over and above their standard. And I know you were in those meetings, so you probably remember what they were talking about. But we have to create the narrative of why we want to do it the way we want to do it. And they've told us over and over again, no doesn't mean no. It's just give us a reason why to say yes. Exactly. So I just want to, just add this into the discussion, having been there firsthand in those trainings, of what they wanted us to do. But policy is critical. We have to have policies in place prior to a disaster that oversee or override any of their policies, and by having those, we set the standard from those policies, not FEMA.
Which is exactly why we need a dig once policy, so we do it correctly.
Okay. Further from the board? Mr. Krovitz, I have a question. Where's my Blagan Bridge?
Not part of this agenda item.
You're right. It is. It's not on the agenda. I withdraw the question. We're talking Butte Fire, not storm damage.
Mr. Krovitz, you can expect I'll probably ask these questions again at the next meeting.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions of Mr. Krovitz? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, is there any more staff presentation on this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to be breaking for lunch. We'll be back at 1:45? 1:30 good for you, or 1:45? 1:45. See you at 1:45.